Hello, good morning to you. Yes, indeed, it's Monday morning and we're going to have a look at the stuff I didn't have time to do last week. There was a meeting in Congress. Donald Trump turned up for the first time since the January the 6th outrage and decided to hawk his wares around the building, basically garnering support from all the lickspittles that he possibly could. And it was amazing the amount of people who toadying. In fact, Ted Cruz actually clapped before, after, and even when Mr. Trump had left the building. In fact, I believe he's actually still clapping. However, in Congress, there was a biting rebuke as they opened session.
Just a show of hands for anyone in the room who hung out with a felon today. Hey, guys, probably want to get your hands up if you were hanging out with convicted felon Donald Trump. I don't think anyone on our side did. But that's why we're here.
No, it's not exactly the worst burn of all time, but one burn. I'm sorry, I don't know why I made that noise, but I did. Here's Adam Schiff. Now, instead of actually discussing things like the debt ceiling or the problems that most people are facing in America, or student loans or mortgage relief or any of the support that actually there, or infrastructure, Congress are wasting their time basically trying to satisfy Donald J. Trump. So, you know, Adam Schiff decided to sort of make a point out of what exactly was going on with Donald J. Trump and what the Republicans were actually supporting.
I want to begin by quoting the jury in the Manhattan hush money payment trial. Guilty, 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 guilty. This was what the jury pronounced.
Okay, so he walked away from the court a free man. What of it?
Unanimously on every count. My Republican colleagues don't really contest Donald Trump's guilt. This is the fascinating thing. Their argument is essentially he should never have been prosecuted, or they falsely claim it was a political prosecution, or they falsely claim it should have been a misdemeanor, not a felony. But they don't contest, not really, that Donald Trump was making hush money payments to a porn star to hide their affair from voters. What they're really saying is they're more than comfortable nominating and electing as the President of the United States someone making hush money payments to a porn star. The party formerly of the moral majority is now, I suppose, hoping to fashion some kind of immoral majority to reinstate Donald Trump as president.
And the tragic thing is, he's not wrong. You look at the stuff that's actually been fixed since Biden's been in office. I mean, he's not the perfect president, but unemployment's down, inflation is down, okay, gas prices, they're slowly coming down, but everything's sort of better under Biden. And the reason is because he's actually invested in the country and taken an interest in the problems that people face, whereas Donald Trump caused a mess and almost trebled the national debt while he was in office. Yet the Republicans can't seem to see this. They can't seem to grasp this simple concept, possibly because it's difficult to see anything when your head is wedged so tightly between Donald Trump's buttocks.
I want to talk a little bit about judicial bias, because they've suggested that there's a bias that occurred in this case.
This is Eric Swalwell talking about judicial process and the appointment of judges and that sort of thing. The Republicans used to have this reputation of being the party of law and order, yet they're backing a man who's got so many felonies against him, it's almost like a lottery number. It's strange that the party of family values and law and order should back such a person. A man with a history of bankruptcies, a man who's been known to stiff people, who's accepting donations from here, there and everywhere, a man who's shown absolute admiration for some of the world's most horrific leaders, a man who kept Mein Kampf in his bedside cabinet, a man who after a prayer meeting with the Christian fundamentalist movement, said to one of his advisors after they left, "Can you believe they swallowed that bullshit?" That man, Donald J. Trump, the man who took a load of classified documents and top-secret papers away with him from the White House, papers he wasn't entitled to keep, papers and documents and information which are for your eyes only and require significant security clearance. Yet Donald Trump's security clearance seems to consist of, do you speak English?
Ambassador Eisen, in Donald Trump's other case, where he's alleged to have stolen national security secrets, who appointed the judge to the bench in the Southern Florida federal case?
Unlike the special counsel in the Hunter Biden prosecution, who is a Trump holdover, David Weiss, that was a last-minute, referring back to our history, midnight appointment, you can call it, by Donald Trump of Judge Eileen Cannon.
Are you kidding me? Donald Trump is complaining about bias in his case, and he's on trial for stealing national security documents with a judge that he appointed? Well, that's interesting. I didn't hear any of you all talking about that. Well, let's talk about the Supreme Court, who's deciding whether he has absolute immunity and can send the Navy SEALs to kill any of his opponents, as he alleges in his arguments that he can do. One judge is flying an insurrection flag in solidarity with the insurrection on January 6th that tried to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election. Another judge's wife was at the president's speech on January 6th.
So the whole basis of the argument here by the Republican Party, and more especially by Donald Trump, is that the cases are politically motivated, that nobody has a clean pair of hands in handling stuff. But here's the thing. He's gone on about Judge Merchan's daughter having political affiliations and whatever, when it has absolutely nothing to do with the procedures of the case. But having his appointee, Judge Eileen Cannon, looking at the classified documents case, well, that's perfectly okay and not politically motivated at all. It's the hypocrisy of it. It's the hypocrisy of it laid bare, and it actually rots the system and the trust in the judicial system. But that's what Trump wants to do. He wants the judicial system to look broken so that he can then dismantle it and do things as he pleases. It's the same sort of thing as, hey, the referee's biased. No, he's not. But he's wearing the other team's uniform. No, he's not. But he's in goal for the other team. No, he's not. Self-denial is a terrible weapon to use on yourself.
Are NDAs illegal?
This is Republican Chip Roy throwing a curveball question and not getting quite the response that he desired.
When an NDA is used to facilitate an illegal campaign contribution, over $127,000 in excess of the legal limits, yes.
Well,
it is a means. It is an unlawful
Chip Roy
means.
doing in baseball what is technically known as hitting yourself in the face with the bat.
Interestingly enough, when talking about intimidation, threatening, and disinformation, I would say, I'm not an attorney. I'm actually a CPA and been involved with finances for a very long time. And I think a lot of Americans should be intimidated and worried if they pay bill to attorney and put it legal expense, and they can have 34 felony counts for that. That is true intimidation. That is what the law is, so that would make anyone very nervous.
Victoria Smarts actually makes a very valid point here, although she doesn't actually realise it. The whole business was that he put things down as a legal expense which clearly weren't a legal expense. He was funneling money through Cohen so that Cohen could pay Stormy Daniels to keep quiet during the 2016 election, thereby enhancing his chances of actually getting into office. If the story came out after he got into office, they could quieten it down and it wouldn't have any effect because it would be very, very difficult to remove him. But he put that down as a legal expense. It wasn't a legal expense, and therefore it was misrepresentation. I don't know how plain you have to make it. Do I have to get a whiteboard and some pictures? And all this conversation, all this whinging and whining actually takes away from the time that could be spent solving America's problems, or at least addressing them.
And Lauren, and I will note from our Melanie Zanona, who is in the room and sending some of these tidbits out, apparently the former president made reference to Hannibal Lecter and said, nice guy, quote, he even had a friend over for dinner. So we've seen Trump out on the campaign trail praising Hannibal Lecter. Apparently he did it again this morning. Not sure we fully understand the context of that.
This is a man who is running for the most powerful office in the world, and he's talking about a character in a book who eats people.
I really found his speech to be one of my favorite speeches.
Marjorie Taylor Greene here, talking about Donald Trump's speech. Marjorie, of course, can be seen at the next Olympics as the potential gold medal winner in the sucking up event.
He came in, talked to the conference, was very honest. He was funny. He was joking around constantly with everyone.
Honest, funny, joking around. Are you sure you were in the right room, Marjorie?
He was really sweet to me. He said to Speaker Johnson, he goes, okay, you got one more seat. You need to be tougher. He saw me. I was sitting back a little ways. He saw me in there and he was like, hello, Marjorie.
Listen to the level of suck-uppage there is in this conversation. This woman is so easily pleased. The guy just said, hello, Marjorie. That's all he said. And this is the kind of praise he gets. It's like custard on a pie.
He's always so sweet and recognizes me. And he said, are you being nice? He was joking. Are you being nice to Speaker Johnson? And I said,
Of course, is the actual title of Marjorie Taylor Greene's new book.
And he said, okay, be nice to him. And I nodded my head.
You got to be honest, this is a pretty low bar. Be nice to him, and I nodded my head. And this makes news. This has actually been broadcast on news networks, not joke news networks, not a parody. This is actual news. It's not a comedy news show. It's an actual news broadcast, and they thought this was worthy. He patted me on the head. I nodded and smiled. So last week, Donald Trump held a rally in Las Vegas, and
he has a lot of bad days. I could name them, but we don't have enough time. We only have a few hours. We don't have enough time. And now, by the way, it's 110, but it doesn't feel it to me, right? So we'll stay out here for a little while. If anybody gets tired, you'll let me know. And if anybody goes down, if you start going down, we have people, they'll pick you up right away. They'll throw water. You know, they were so worried. Everybody was so worried yesterday about you. And they never mentioned me. I'm up here sweating like a dog. Secret Service said, we have to make sure everyone's safe. I said, what about me? We never thought of that. They don't think about me. I'm working my ass off. I'm working hard. This is hard work. Front row Joe. Front row Joe.
Well, that gives you a good clue as to Donald Trump's priorities. You're out there in the blazing heat and he's upstairs. What about me? What about me? It's everybody else's fault but mine. Why doesn't anybody think about me? Donald Trump actually was standing there and the temperature was over 110 degrees, which means that people were being carted off. In fact, 123 people got taken to hospital with heat exposure. But no, Donald Trump's worried about him standing up there on the stage, banging on about this, that and the other. It's a lot like when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. A lot of people were giving Mary Lincoln a lot of support and succour and saying how sorry they were that this has happened, apart from one gentleman who went up to Mrs. Lincoln and said, well, apart from that, did you enjoy the show?
The illegal immigrants are turning, and they're turning at a level that nobody's ever seen before. They're fighting our families. They're totally destroying our black population. They're totally destroying our Hispanic population.
Neither of which he gives a flying fig about, but there you go, carry on.
And you know what else they're destroying? And for you it means a little bit less, but it means quite a bit in this state.
They're openly melting ice cream in the street. They've opened a second-hand bodega. Don't tell me they're impersonating trees and making kids trans.
Killing unions. They're killing unions because the unions are not able to survive.
Yeah, you know the Donald Trump of old and the Donald Trump of new and the Donald Trump of current is so stringently opposed to unions or any form of collective bargaining. You know that, don't you? Have you had a bang on the head?
They're not able to survive this onslaught. It's making them impossible. They've worked hard. They've worked long to get their salaries up a little bit. They're not able to do it.
But that's the free market. That's the free market economy, and this is what I don't really understand. A system which has made Trump what he is, an incredibly rich man, is not a system that person would want to change. Rather, they would want to enforce the same rules that currently exist that put them into the situation they're currently in to make more.
Virtually 100% of the new jobs under Biden have also gone to illegal aliens. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. That is news to me, and it's a possibility that I didn't know that because it's complete bullshit.
100%.
Utter shash. But here's the really weird thing. These people are complaining about the cost of living and the fact that they have no money, yet they're paying £200-300 to come and see Donald Trump in the middle of a field on a blazing hot day and be exposed to heat and end up in hospital, which will give them a bill of at least $16,000. So where's all this money coming from?
And you know, these people are so bad. They will correct me when I say 100%.
Yes, and you would expect to be corrected.
Of the new jobs.
Yes, and you would expect to be corrected when what you're saying is utter horse manure. I mean, what's going to come out of his mouth next? There's nothing like having bin juice on your chips. It's lovely, it's great, it's the best. The world's never known anything like it. That's got to rank as one of the world's worst impersonations ever, even by my standards. Anyway, he went on to talk about drug abuse, strangely enough.
Like China, I was with President Xi. I said, do you have a drug problem? No. He didn't even know what I was talking about. He's got 1.4 billion people. I said, do you have a drug problem?
It is the most boring anecdote of all time, isn't it? It's the guy at the dinner party who no one wants to sit next to because all he's going to talk about is nectar points.
He goes, no drug problem. I said, how do you do that? Essentially, he said, the death penalty. We catch, they call it quick trial. They have a trial, and it's quick.
Yeah, I don't know whether you noticed, but it's not exactly a judicial system, the Chinese system. The verdicts are predetermined. It's like, oh, I'll go for the lottery thing, but I'll just pick the wrong numbers. That's the crazy thing about this situation. He's actually recommending the death penalty. There was a case recently in the United States where a woman was cleaning out a house, and she managed to find some drug paraphernalia there. It was all empty, but she managed to find it, and she thought, I'll get rid of this, I'll drive it down to the local tip. She gets a random police stop, the police find these things, and because there's not enough narcotics in the actual car, in fact there's no narcotics in the actual car, but there are traces within the jar and the bongs that she's actually got, they included the weight of the jar and the bongs in the actual charge. So it went up from being under the influence or using drugs or being in possession of drugs to becoming a drug dealer, and she's now facing 15 years in prison because of the police's overzealousness in weighing the equipment that she actually was taking to the dump. Even if you think the death penalty is a good thing, it's got to be enforced by people you can actually rely on, and you can't rely on that system.
And by the way, isn't that breeze nice? Do you feel the breeze? Because I don't want anybody going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care. See, now the press will take that and they'll say he said a horrible thing.
There you go. That was Donald Trump at his Las Vegas rally. Doesn't care about his citizens, doesn't care about Americans. All he wants is their vote.
Because I don't want anybody going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care.
I mean, how much more obvious does he have to make it? Just plough through the crowd in his limousine on the way to the stage? It's getting that way. If you're that stupid that you follow this man and support this man and think this man has your interests at heart, then I'm sorry, you need to check in with a decent medical facility and have yourself checked out.